Okay, welcome to the lesson on pirouetting travel. First thing you want to do here is always make sure that you have a good grasp of orientation and that you can kind of snap it into each orientation fast. If you're still working on that, it's a good idea to go back and keep practicing your hovering and just make sure that you can center it and get it the way you want. The first thing that you work on before you start any kind of Pierrot flips or pirouetting travel is just stationary pirouetting, and you want to do them nice and slow like I'm doing here, and keep doing this until you can correct in all 4 points and keep the helicopter in a stable hover. Now you want to kind of play with the rudder on this and do slow rudder and faster rudder so that you get used to making the movements at different speeds, but when you first start off it's much easier to do it in one rate before you really start to get faster. It's hard to correct in all the points when you're going fast. So you do that upright, and then of course right now I'm doing it inverted, and basically it's the same thing. Keep practicing until you can get a stable hover inverted at different rudder speeds, a little bit slower there like you see, and you want to be able to control the rudder as you're doing this. Once you really start to work out that, the next thing to work on is some pirouetting travel. And what I'm doing here is just as I'm pirouetting in a straight line, I am adjusting the controls to keep it in a loop. And here's that same thing inverted. This kind of gives you a good grasp of how good your hovering is, because if you can't stop at the end once you get it started in a direction, really means that you haven't got the Piro hover down yet, and that means you can't control the disc and keep it flat. And that's a key to any pirouetting maneuver, Pierrot flips, or any other pirouetting travel. Now, once you get through that, the next thing to work on is pirouetting circles. And a prerequisite for this is to be able to do forward flight and backward flight and funnels and so on and so forth that we've done in the previous lessons. But as you can see here, I'm just real slow on the rudder, and I'm correcting at all 4 points, and I'm trying to keep it in a constant heading hold circle. Now the first thing to practice with this is right here what I'm doing. You want to lock it into each orientation and then move it. And what you're doing there is you're kind of moving the rudder a little bit, locking it in and then stopping it, and that'll give you a good sense of each quadrant of how to adjust the helicopter in different attitudes as it's kind of pirouetting. Once you get that down, you start to do a little bit faster, a little bit smoother, and just keep working on this until you can get constant heading, hold, height, and speed circles. No different than when we were doing forward flight and circles in different directions and everything else. Now, while you're working on upright, it's a good idea to also start working on inverted. As you can see here, a good tip in everything that I'm doing is, right now I'm doing all of my rudder movements are counterclockwise, or I'm pulling the rudder stick to the left. You'll notice when you see people at the field that everybody pirouettes in a different way, and there's very few people, 3D masters, that are comfortable with pirouetting in both directions equally. So just pick whatever side that you're most comfortable with to start, and focus on that. And I've left pirouetting the other way to another day. I'm actually working on that now, and trust me, it's not ready for a video. So you can see here I'm doing the same thing with inverted circles. I did each orientation in quadrants, and now I've kind of sped up the rudder and I was doing some full circles. So now the next thing is what everybody's looking for in pirouetting moves is the holy grail. It's the Pierrot Flip. Everybody wants to do it, and what you see a lot of people do at the field is they get up high and they fully bank the rudder and they start just stirring the sticks. And you hear everybody say that, stir the sticks. I don't recommend that as a great way to train how to fly, because this is what happens. If you look at the disc of the helicopter, you can see that it's not transitioning in a consistent direction. It's not moving the same way. The key to Pierrot flips is keying off the tail, and what you want to do is every time the tail is at you, you want to start a forward flip. So what I do to practice is get in a flat pirouette, and when the tail comes to you, start that stick stir, and you want to follow the tail all the way around until you get back upright, and then use your Piro hover skills to get the disc flat again. This kind of allows you to, when you really start to do this at the field, get the disc flat, get comfortable, do a Pierrot flip, and then once you're flipped over inverted, you know that you can get the disc flat because you practice that Piro hovering, which is so key to being able to get this low and consistent so that the disc always goes a certain way. If you watch me do this, the disc is always going away from myself. It's almost as if I'm doing a tumble away from myself. Another good thing to practice is just half flips and stopping the tail. And I'm going to do a few of those in a second. And basically what you're doing there is you're just doing this a little bit slower. And you want to flip over and get the disc flat. And keep practicing on making that consistent. Same thing. You want to adjust the speeds and make sure that you do this faster and slower, and so that you can adjust the rudder. Because when you get out in the field, you're going to have situations where it's going to get away from you, and you're going to need to move the rudder faster or slower to be comfortable. And you want to be able to have that control so that you can get it around. Alright, so now that we've worked on Pierrot flips, and we've done Pierrot circles and funnels, next thing we can do here is a little Pierrot figure 8. And the transition in the middle of that figure 8 is a snake transition, and it's actually half of a Pierrot flip. It's the same stir. What I'm doing is I'm coming around, and I'm keying off the tail, and I'm doing half a Pierrot flip. And then I'm working it back into an inverted circle. Half a Pierrot flip, key off the tail, work it back in. Really cool move. Great effect, and if you can center it at the field, it's just really exciting to watch. Next thing I'm going to do here is a Pierrot tic-tacs. This isn't exactly my forte of a move, but instead of rolling the disc completely over, what you can see is I'm bringing the disc halfway across, and I'm doing it kind of like a tic-tac, where the disc is going over and then coming back, going over and then coming back. This is all similar to full Pierrot flips. It's just that you're controlling the disc and keying off the tail. It's really important. Variation of that that's a little bit easier to practice is the Pierrot rainbow, as you see here. Same kind of movement. You're keying off the tail and you're correcting in all four directions. This is all based on making sure that you start these foundation skills, your hovering and everything else, and you really get that stuff down and follow the basics. Piro hovering. Here's a Piro snake, which is just that same transition we did in the figure 8, going across the field. Great thing to practice. And the last thing I'll do here is a Piro auto. Don't get frustrated. It takes a lot of time to really pick this up and learn. I spent a lot of time doing stuff, and just practice the basics. Practice your pirouetting hovers, your pirouetting straight line travel, and your circles before you get to Pierrot flips, and I guarantee you'll be able to work the rudder. It'll be constant, and you'll have a great time.